I believe. Welcome to the Tyler Turner Show, presented by the Sportscast. Today's date, November 30th, 2020. If you haven't yet, please subscribe on YouTube, Periscope, and iTunes. If you're on iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It'll help us out tremendously. Visit us on thesportscast.net. Also follow us on Twitter at sportcast.one. Check us out on the app, Sportscast, in the iOS App Store. Hi, guys. I missed last week. I was out of town, and I actually traveled all week. Basically, I drove all the way to Virginia, drove all the way back. I got back last night. I'm tired. Had a little trouble with technical difficulties, so tonight will be a very, very brief, very, very quick, very, very straight to the point show. I'm just going to kind of touch on the Big Ten, what's happening there, Pac-12, what's happening there. Obviously, I missed a couple weeks, so a lot has happened. The big thing that's happened in both conferences is just a lot of cancellations. A couple cancellations in the Big Ten. I think there's 2. I think there's 3 in the Pac-12. There's already 1 this week for the Big Ten. There's another one that might be Pac-12. Who knows? They've had 9 so far in 4 weeks, so there's a decent chance that there's going to be cancellations. Now, the Pac-12 has done a decent job of rescheduling, doing makeup games. They've done 2 makeup games in the conference, and they did 1 makeup game with a non-conference team. The Big Ten hasn't been able to make up any games. I don't know if maybe that's a possibility this week. I know Northwestern and Minnesota canceled, and I think there's a pretty good, decent chance Ohio State and Michigan State cancels. So then maybe Michigan State versus Northwestern. I don't know. So that's a possibility. What to say about the conferences is I think there's only 1 team from either of these 2 conferences. It just kind of enmeshed them together. I think there's only 1 team left. Remember, they were the last 2 conferences in the Power 5 to get going. October 24th is the start date for the Big Ten, November 7th for the Pac-12. I think there's 1 team and 1 team alone that can make the college football playoff in either conference, and that is Ohio State. You could make a slight argument if USC finishes 6-0 and winning the Pac-12, if all hell breaks loose. It's highly doubtful. I mean, and they didn't look very good in the first 3 games. I mean, they barely won. They won on last second drives. The first week against Arizona State, second week against Arizona. They finally looked decent against Utah, but I would put it at like 10%, 5%, less than that. I don't know. And that's about it. As far as anyone else from the Big Ten, I think nobody has a chance. Everyone else is lost and just aren't playing enough games. So anyways, I think Ohio State's the only chance, and I think they are a little bit in jeopardy. They had their game canceled last week against Illinois because of the COVID outbreak on the Ohio State team. They currently canceled all football activities. They are pretty doubtful, I think, to play this week against Michigan State, which would make them have 3 cancellations so far. And I believe they would no longer be eligible for the Big Ten title because you have to play at least 6 games to be eligible, and they would only be able to play 5 before the championship weekend. That being said, if they still finish 5-0, 6-0, there is a chance at Ohio State, because right now they're the number 4 team by the college football playoff. So I think there's a chance they still might be able to get in just because of who they are and the talent they have in their roster, and basically the committee thinking that they're one of the 4 best teams. But I think they could also get left out. If you just look at the resume, I think Indiana's a good team, 5-1, but Indiana is probably in jeopardy too because they just lost Michael Penix, their starting quarterback, to ACL injury for the season. So I think it's kind of doubtful that they're going to be very good for the rest of this year. So that's their best victory. Other than that, they have victories against 3 below 500 teams: Nebraska, Rutgers, and Penn State. They probably would. I mean, even if they play Michigan State, I believe Michigan State and Michigan both have. Is Michigan State 500? They might be 500. They might not be. I can't. I'm trying to think off the top of my head there. They could be 3-3, but they could also be 2-4. But I know that Michigan's 2-4 and they're looking terrible. So there's a decent possibility that Ohio State would have 5 victories and 4 of the teams are losing records. Championship weekend, maybe they get a game in against Wisconsin because Wisconsin's not eligible either because they have missed 3 games due to cancellation. We'll see. I really, at this point, it's so hard to see what's going to happen. It's so hard to predict. It's such a fluid situation. It's honestly been an exhausting season from the initial postponement to getting going to all the cancellations and just the COVID outbreaks in recent weeks across the United States and across college football landscape. I don't know. It is what it is, and who knows what happens. But I would say Ohio State's the only possible team in either conference that has a chance at the college football playoff. Pac-12, my team, Oregon, just to touch on them specifically, they lost. They lost Oregon State, their in-state rival. That was not a good loss. Obviously, a team that they'd beaten. I know they'd beaten them the last 3 years in a row. They just hammered them, actually. Well, for the first 2 years, they hammered him, Willie Taggart, and then the first year of Chris Ball. Then they actually had a pretty close game last year. They just didn't play very well. And it kind of, I would say they didn't play very well. That's why they lost this week. Specifically about Oregon, all the opt-outs specifically on defense really was impactful. They are not good defensively. They don't really have any leadership. They're not tackling well. They're not playing well. They're statistically at the bottom half of the conference when it comes to rush defense, scoring defense, yards per game. They are not a good defensive team. Offensively, they're fine. Offensively, they have done enough every week to win. And they did enough last week. I mean, you think 38 points, if you had told me that, they're going to score 38 points, I would be like, they'll win. I don't know how much they'll win by, but they'll win. But they didn't. They got 41. So they unfortunately just are – that's what they are. They have a couple games left. They could win. They have more talented rosters than definitely Cal and even Washington, who's first in the North right now, and I think has probably the second most talented roster in the North, and it has a pretty good team. But Oregon could beat them. Washington's definitely not very good offensively. They squeaked out a 24-21 come-from-behind victory over Utah, but Washington's pretty limited. Morris really can't get the ball down the field. Dylan Morris, starting quarterback for Washington, he just really struggles to get the ball down the field. He had 3 interceptions against Utah. I've seen him play 3 games, and other than the kind of the short intermediate passing game, he's really not very effective. So if you could take away that, kind of make him just beat you down the field, I don't think he's going to win a lot. So that kind of make it a team a little bit one-dimensional, even as bad as Oregon's defense is played. Now, Washington is a good defense. Washington has the best defense in the Pac-12. So the Oregon offense, which has been good, they were very – this is what I'll say. Week 1, they were pretty good. They turned the ball over a couple times, but they were pretty good. Week 2, they were very good. 500-plus yards of total offense. If it wasn't for the 3 turnovers, they probably would have won that game by 21-plus points. They were very good. Week 3 was when you started to see a pretty good game plan. UCLA, who does not have a bad defense. I saw that against Cal week 2, then I saw it again against week 4 against Arizona. UCLA has a decent defense. I saw it against Oregon. They were able to get off the pass rusher. They were able to stop the run. Now, they did give up a lot of big plays in the pass game. I think they kind of sold out. But I kind of think it gave a little bit of a blueprint for Oregon State. Oregon State also was able to, at times, get after the quarterback a little bit. They also are, at times, able to get negative plays in the run game. But once again, Oregon was able to get them down the field in the pass game for some explosive plays. Now, Cal and Washington will be the 2 best defenses that Oregon faces. That being said, both those teams, Cal and Washington, are better against the pass. They're better pass defenses. They're not as good against the run. I think Oregon will be able to run the ball a little bit, and then that probably will set the pass. I still think Oregon has enough talent on the offensive side of the ball to probably be pretty effective. Defensively, these are two of the probably, I mean, I would say Washington and Cal. I would say Cal's probably the worst offense in the Pac-12 so far. I just don't think they're very good comparably. But this defense has been bad, so who knows? Maybe they'll be awesome this week. As far as defensively, Cal, like I said, has a pretty good defense. And then so Cal and Washington, I think Washington is probably middle-ish in the Pac-12 as far as offense. They can run. They're pretty good offensive line. They're pretty good at protecting the quarterback, and they can run the ball pretty effectively. It's just passing. They're pretty limited because Moore is just not very – you just can't get the ball downfield a whole lot. So it's pretty much kind of a short game, use the tight end a lot. But Oregon could beat them. Oregon could win both those games, then they could go to the Pac-12 championship. They could beat USC, probably Colorado. That's probably the two teams that's going to be in the Pac-12 championship. And I think Oregon could beat either team. Yeah, definitely possible. So they could still go to New Year's Six game and be back-to-back Pac-12 champions, but tough loss. And they definitely have not looked as good as I thought they would. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year, what do you expect of the first 4 games of the season? I would have said, I think the defense is going to be terrific. I think it's going to be the best defense, if not the best, second best defense in the Pac-12. And I think the offense will struggle a little. I think the offensive line will probably take a little while to get going, quarterback. Well, the offense, honestly, for the most part, other than the turnovers, they have turned the ball over too much. I think it's, top of my head, it's 8 turnovers through 4 games, and they're -4 in the turnover margin. But other than that, especially in the pass game, the running has not been as good the last 2 weeks, especially the UCLA game. But for the most part, the passing game has been very good. I think Tyler Shuck has been over 300 yards 3 times, I think, every game but the first game. And he has 10 touchdowns. I mean, they've been able to definitely get the ball down the field. And the wide receivers have been winning their matchups. Tight end have been winning their matchups. Running backs have been catching the ball well. So they've passed the ball well. And they've run the ball really good the first 2 weeks and not bad in the game 4 against Oregon State. So the offense, if you had told me they were going to score 35, 42, 38, and 38 points, I'd be like, oh, Oregon's going to be 4-0. But no, the defense has been terrible. They've given up 500 yards against Oregon State, 400 plus against Washington State and Stanford and UCLA. They've just been horrible with run defense. I mean, Felton, was Austin Jones, McIntyre, all 4 running backs look great against them. The pass defense has been they haven't gone after quarterback well. They've only 4 sacks through 4 games, not very many quarterback hurries. So they just have not been good at stopping the run and getting after the pass after the quarterback, and even creating really. The UCLA game, they did create some turnovers. There was some turnovers created, so I shouldn't say that. But outside the UCLA game, 0 turnovers the other 3 games. So, and then the pass defense, for the most part, the corners have been very good, which I would have predicted. Right, Mikael Wright and Dede Lenore, I think, are 2 of the better corners in the Pac-12. So they've been good. Secondary, the safeties, they've given up some stuff, and so have the linebackers. They tight ends and slot receivers, and the short passing game has definitely been pretty effective for other teams. So we will see. Oregon definitely has to change. They have to be a little better defensively, because I think if they aren't, they'll lose one of the next 3 games. So that's all I know. Other teams in the Pac-12, Washington's undefeated. Like I said, I don't think they're a great team. They won a close game against Oregon State. They had a 21, came from behind 21-0 at halftime. They came from behind to win in the final minute, 24-21 against Utah. They dominated Arizona, but Arizona's honestly a terrible team. Washington, I think is pretty good. They're the team I predicted to finish second. I still feel good about that. I still feel that when that game comes, I think it'll be a good game, and I think Oregon's going to win. Cal's not any good. They're 0-3. I don't think I need to touch on that much. Stanford's really not very good. They're 1-2, and there's a lot of restrictions and a lot of protocols they're dealing with in California. It's been a tough year, and I think that's really affected them. And there's a little bit of a talent disadvantage in general. So Oregon State is much improved, and Jonathan Smith has done a very good job. They're 2-2, but even their loss to Washington was a very controversial fourth down missed call by the referees that they might have won that game if that happened, because they were down like the 3. If they would have scored there a touchdown, they would have won 28-27. And then they beat Oregon. They also beat Cal. So Oregon State is much improved. Who am I missing? Washington State, good week 1 victory of Oregon State. Played pretty good against Oregon. Got beat in the second half, but they have had COVID issues, so they haven't played for 2 weeks. I don't know. We'll see. They're supposed to play USC this week, and I think they have a last game against Stanford. Maybe they'll get a couple games in. Hope they are. It's scheduled this Sunday against USC. Am I missing someone else? Feels like I'm missing someone. Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, Cal. Oh my gosh, I'm missing someone in the Pac-12. Washington State, Oregon State. No, I got them all. Pac-12 South. USC's 3-0. They finally didn't play bad 2 weeks ago against Utah. So they got 3-0 and they won 33-17. I still don't think they've been very impressive. Their offense has actually been kind of inconsistent. It's not been this juggernaut like many people thought their offense would be. Their defense has actually not been bad. They actually played very good against Utah. Now, Utah is a little not the best offensively, but they did play well. They weren't as good against Arizona, and they weren't as good against Arizona State, but it's not been bad. They've caused some turnovers. The secondaries played pretty well. They still struggle a little bit against the run, but they've not been bad. But like I said, offensively, they have trouble running the ball. They've been a little inconsistent in the pass game. They've scored points, but they have not been extremely efficient, which is unusual. I thought USC was going to have a great offense, but so far they've been a little bit up and down. That being said, they're 3-0. They're supposed to play Washington State this week. They have been dealing with COVID. We'll see how that goes. Arizona State has not played a game since USC, 3 state cancellations due to COVID. I believe they're going to play this week, but honestly, they're only going to get 3-4 games in this season. It's been a tough year for that. UCLA, 2-2, almost beat Oregon. I mean, they had a chance to win at the end there. They also, against Colorado, they lost 48-42, and if it wasn't for the 4 turnovers, they probably could have won that game. They're pretty, and then they blew out Arizona, and they blew out Cal. So they're a team that is a couple of possessions away from being 4-0. They've been pretty good. I've watched them play. They can run the ball pretty good. They can get after the quarterback pretty good. They've caused some turnovers. They're not a bad team. I've been actually kind of impressed with UCLA, and I would not be shocked at all to see them beat Arizona State coming off of a 3-week layoff because of COVID. And I would not be shocked if they beat USC. Just wouldn't. I think they're not a bad team. I would say so far from what I've seen, if I were to say the 2 teams that impressed me the most, it's actually been UCLA and Oregon State. Now, they both have played 4 games. And you think Washington's 3-0, USC's 3-0, Oregon's 3-1, but I expected that. Those teams have more talent. Those teams have better personnel for the most part. Then especially a team. Oh, and the Colorado. I haven't even mentioned Colorado. Colorado's 3-0. They had 2 games in a row canceled because the other team had COVID. Off the top of my head, Arizona State and then USC. But they were able to reschedule a non-conference game with San Diego State. Colorado's 3-0. They're 3-0. They've not won by a lot. They won UCLA by 6 points. They won by 3 points over Stanford, and then they won by 10 over San Diego State. But they've won. They've played pretty well. They've made caused turnovers on defense. Sam Neuer, he wasn't as good last week, but he was pretty good the first 2 games. They're a surprise too. Colorado, Oregon State, UCLA. Preseason, UCLA actually, I for some reason felt as if they were going to be a little better than people were projecting to be. I kind of also thought that's because Arizona and Colorado are so bad that there's a couple victories they're going to get, and I actually thought they're going to be a little better. But I think Oregon State I predicted to be 1-5, and I believe I predicted Colorado to be 1-5, maybe 0-6, and both those teams much better than I thought. And so props to Carl Durrell, props to Jonathan Smith, and props to Chip Kelly for having a better team. Even though I thought that, like I said, UCLA is going to be a little better, I didn't necessarily think they were going to be competitive. I didn't think they were going to be competitive against Oregon. I didn't. I thought that was a game that Oregon would just blow them out of the building. They weren't even supposed to play Cal. But even when they got scheduled last second, I thought it was going to be a very close game. I didn't think they were going to win 34-10. So props to UCLA. Props to UCLA for being better. That being said, I think when it all comes down to it, I believe it will be USC versus I think USC wins this weekend. I actually, if I were to predict right now, let me set on it a week, but I actually think UCLA beats USC. I just could see USC losing that game. But a 4-1, I still think Colorado somehow loses that game to Utah, and just for some reason I don't see them going 5-0. So then they're 4-1, and I believe USC would be the tiebreaker because Colorado was unable to play 2 weeks in a row in the Pac-12, and so then USC would be the team to make the Pac-12 championship. I still, as of today, even despite what Oregon did and losing that game to Oregon State and the week before not looking very impressive versus UCLA, I trust the coaching staff. I trust the talent they have in the roster. I think they're going to get it turned around. I think they're going to figure out how to win the conference. But that being said, wouldn't be shocked if Washington wins it. I think they're a very good defense, and I think they're doing enough on offense. I don't think they're a great offense, but Washington could go 6-0. I don't think that would get them into college football playoff by any stretch of the means. I think, they'd be going to New Year's Six game. Big Ten, I ultimately think Ohio State doesn't lose. I just wonder, I'm pretty doubtful they play against Michigan State this week, which is in their last games against Michigan, and then the championship week, which they're not eligible for the Big Ten championship, but I think they'd probably schedule them against Wisconsin, who's not eligible either. And if they're able to beat Wisconsin with victories over Wisconsin, Indiana, that would give them two top 25 victories, 6-0. They are what they are. They have the talent they have. I think that there's a decent chance to get into the playoff, and I think that's Ohio State's goal right now because it's been tough, and they haven't looked great. As talented as they are, they beat 3 not good teams, and they won all 3 of those games, but those teams aren't going to be really good. I mean, Rutgers, I don't know their records off the top of my head, but I think it's like 2-4, 1-4 for Nebraska, and I think Penn State is 1-5, and that's a combined what? I'm doing it off the top of my head. I think it's combined like between 5 and 12. Those are 3 not very good teams. And I've seen the players, no, those teams are very good. Penn State's kind of just fallen off. Nebraska's not good again. They've just really struggled to be consistent. And Rutgers is getting better, but they're still just not a very talented roster. And then the one good team that Ohio State played, They won 42-35. They gave up 500 yards of offense. They got shredded in the pass game. Indiana had a chance to tie it at the end. And I think Indiana's not a bad team, but also I don't think Indiana's that good. And I don't think offensively they're that good. Why did they do so well at Ohio State? I know there's no fans, but still. And actually I did a little, I think the Pac-12, so I've been bannering back. Is fans to make a difference? Does it? The Pac-12, it's actually 10 through 4 weeks. Home team 10 victories, road team 6 victories. Last year during the same 4-week period, it was home 8 victories, road 7. So actually there was more home victories this year with no fans than it was last year with fans. So the Pac-12 does have a little bit of difference. Now, Big Ten, it was not the same. I think right now it's, I don't know what it was. It was 14 for 15 the first 5 weeks. I don't know at week 6, but I know it's 14 victories for the home team, 15 victories for the road team. So it pretty much seemed like it didn't matter. But in the Big Pac-12, it's been a little bit of advantage this year for the home team, despite no fans. But I've seen the Big Ten, and obviously I just think it's a weird season for both Big Ten and Pac-12 because of COVID, but I really don't think the football's been very good. I don't think there's very many good teams. I mean, Wisconsin's a solid team. Northwestern has a good defense. They have no offense, and that's why I ended up getting upset against Michigan State. Indiana is not bad, but they just lost their starting quarterback with an ACL surgery. I could see them losing the next game or two. Actually, Iowa's not bad. Iowa's won 4 in a row, and they play Wisconsin. Who knows? I could see them finishing possibly 6-2. I think they're a little better than people maybe thought they would be. Minnesota's not very good. Purdue's been pretty up and down. And then Rutgers and Illinois just not that great, even though Illinois has been a little better than people I think anticipated. But I mean, at least in recent weeks, they had like a really impressive victory over Nebraska. But as a whole, it really is. And then Michigan and Penn State are terrible. I mean, we have to mention that 1-5 and 2-4. Penn State beat Michigan in the toilet bowl. Those are 2 not good teams this year. I don't see either one turning it around, and it's Ohio State, and the next 2 I thought was Penn State and Michigan. Nope, they're both bad. I just don't think the other teams are good enough. And Wisconsin's had half their games canceled due to COVID, either them having it or the other team. So it's just been a tough year that way for Wisconsin. So I think at the end of the day, I think it's all about Ohio State, who's also had a tough time with COVID. But I think there's enough talent to possibly sneak in at the number 4. I could see them possibly not. And I also could see all this struggle with COVID, the up and down. I could see maybe they play Wisconsin in the last week of the season and actually lose because all getting interrupted, not being able to do team activities, that just affects with just the whole rhythm of the season. And that just, I was thinking about it even prior to the show. I'm like, that's just ripe for getting just knocked off. It just, you come in there, you're just out of rhythm, just not playing your best despite the talent that Ohio State has. And then at that point, no team for the Big Ten, no team for the Pac-12 makes it. And if I were to say right now, as of today, November 30th, we still have 2 weeks of regular season and we have championship weekend. With how COVID is just canceling stuff and how weird it is, it's hard to predict anything. I, for some reason, feel as if the Big Ten and Pac-12, ever since the season's been postponed, and I've seen it come to fruition, 9 cancellations in the Pac-12 through 4 weeks. I believe it is 7, and it's probably looking like 8 cancellations in the Big Ten through 6 weeks. I think both of them don't make the playoff. I do not think there's going to be a Big Ten or a Pac-12 team in the playoff. I think for some reason Ohio State either just can't get back on the field in time, and 5-0 or whatever is not impressive enough. They end up getting, or I see them getting back and then just end up losing to like a Wisconsin in the last week of the season. And I just don't think like Pac-12. I don't think even if the Pac-12 had a win with Washington or USC won outright at this point, I don't think either one makes it. I just don't. And obviously, I still think that Oregon wins it. That's my prediction. And Oregon's out. They lost to Oregon State. They're done. So, and I thought it was going to be tough anyways. I thought it was going to be tough with the Pac-12, really tough. And I thought it could go Ohio State's way, but think they were going to have to play all their games or most of their games and play pretty impressively. And unfortunately, it's looking like they're maybe going to get 4, 5, 6 games in, and they have not been maybe as impressive. The teams have not played a very good schedule, and I just think it's tough. I just think it's been a tough year. And you look at Alabama, they're a great team. They're probably getting in. You look at Notre Dame and Clemson. The only way Clemson does get in if they lose again to Notre Dame. Maybe they don't, but if they can beat Notre Dame, then I think they both get in. I think Notre Dame's in no matter what. I think Clemson, if they can win, will definitely be in. And then you're looking at A&M with one loss, possibly getting in. Florida has been pretty impressive. If they definitely knock off Alabama, then they both will get in, Alabama and Florida. You have an undefeated Cincinnati team. I don't think when all said and done, not winning a Power 5 conference, I also don't think they'll have any top 25 victories. I think it'll be tough, but who knows? I don't know who else there is. And then it is Ohio State. Then there's Ohio State. But if Ohio State loses, they're not going to get in. And then who knows? What if we have absolute chaos? Like Notre Dame beats Clemson. So Clemson's a 2-loss team. And then, Alabama wins. So Alabama's undefeated. Notre Dame's undefeated. So you have those two. And then the third and 4 is like, let's say Ohio State loses like I predicted. And, the Pac-12 is what they are. And the Big 12, maybe a 2-loss Oklahoma, who's actually playing extremely well right now. Maybe they sneak in. Maybe Iowa State, who's going to play them in the Big 12. Maybe I don't know. At that point, who knows? Texas A&M with one loss. What if the Texas A&M could still lose again? I don't know. It's so up in the air at this point. If I were to pick the top 4 teams, I know what the playoff has. If I were to pick the top 4 teams right now, I'd probably have number 1 be Alabama. I agree with that. Number 2, I'd have Notre Dame. Number 3, I'd have Clemson. I would actually put number 4 as of today. I'd probably put Texas A&M. They had an impressive victory over Florida. I think they're a pretty good team. I thought they were going to be pretty good entering this season. I'd probably have number 5, actually Florida. Their only loss to A&M. They've had a good victory over Georgia. I would then probably put Ohio State 6. But it really is dependent. Are they going to play again? Or when are they going to play again? And so they're a little bit of a flux. I mean, I think people are giving the benefit of the doubt because they have a super talented roster. They have one of the best quarterbacks in college football in Justin Fields. But if you look at what they have in the field, I just don't know if I've seen a great team. I've seen a team that has a great quarterback and it's great wide receivers, but I've also seen a team that's not been very good defensively. They have given up points. They gave up 35 to Indiana. They gave up 27 to Rutgers. They gave up, I think it was 26 to Penn State. They got definitely their passing game. Every game that I've seen them in, people have definitely made some plays through the air on them. They haven't got a great pass rush. I just don't think they're a great team yet. And I think part of it's because of the COVID season and just the weird scheduling and the stop and start. I just don't think that is very good for getting rhythm on. And I've actually seen worse when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Same with Oregon. The postponement, the guys, they had 3 of their best defensive players opt out. And defensively, they're just not very good. Oregon's pretty good offensively. Oregon, I thought, for the most part, other than the turnovers, has been equipped offensively. I mean, they're top in the Pac-12 in yards per game. They're top in yards per play. They're top in passing offense. They're tops in scoring points per game in the Pac-12. But defensively, they're not good. And so, for the most part, most teams I just haven't seen. And Northwestern's played pretty good defense. in the Big Ten and Wisconsin. And in the Pac-12, Washington has played pretty good defense. But for the most part, the defense has been terrible in both those conferences. And teams like Ohio State and Oregon that normally have very good defenses, I don't think have been very good on defense. Now, I think Ohio State, comparably to Oregon, I think Ohio State is a better offense. I think Ohio State is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in college football. Ohio State has maybe the best wide receiver group in college football. They have one of the best offensive lines. So I mean, I definitely say Ohio State's better than Oregon. And they've won all 4 games. Oregon lost their 1 game. But I'm just saying, in general, defenses have not been good. Offenses have, I guess, despite COVID, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just play calling and talent. They've been able to be more proficient for teams. So I personally do not think what I've seen from either of those conferences, if I were to rank my top 10, like I said, I'd have Ohio State 6, and then I think 7 I would have probably – actually, Georgia's look pretty good. As much as they didn't look good, I'd probably have Oklahoma or Georgia at 7 or 8. I think Iowa State actually probably I'd sneak in there at like 9. And then I don't know who I'd have it be 10. But I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't know, but whatever. Cincinnati. I'd have Cincinnati be top 10 for sure. They're a good team. They just don't play in a good conference and don't play against great competition. But I really would probably Ohio State, and that's based mostly on just the talent they have on the offensive side of the ball and not necessarily how they played. I just don't think what I've seen so far in the Big Ten and Pac-12 has been a great product. I think people give the Big Ten a little bit more benefit of the doubt because they just think they respect the programs like, Wisconsin and Iowa. So they're in the top 25, but I don't think they're necessarily top 25 teams or even remotely college football playoff teams. And then in the Pac-12, USC and Washington, they have pretty decent teams to go along with Oregon from a talent perspective, but I don't know necessarily they're both undefeated, and so is Oregon, but I think Colorado, UCLA, and Oregon State have been as impressive so far. So I'm just right now, as I sit here today, I would have to have my mind changed a little bit by the product on the field to put either anyone, and it's pretty much only Ohio State that has a chance, but I think that there's a pretty distinct possibility that come selection day, I just don't think anyone's going to be in there. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. I do think that Ohio State, because of the talent they have on offense, would be, let's say they're a 4th seed. That's an intriguing match between them and Alabama because they can score in Alabama. I don't think they'd be able – what I've seen so far on defense, I don't know how much it'd stop Alabama, but I think they would score in Alabama. So that would be intriguing from that sense. I would not be really that intrigued by anyone else playing Alabama in the Big Ten or Pac-12 because I think they'd get killed. Probably the more – if you're to say, like, who would I think more deserving to play Alabama, Clemson versus Alabama would be a fun matchup. First game, of course. Notre Dame has never done very well against Alabama or against the big dogs, but they're better this year. They beat Clemson. I know Trevor Lawrence wasn't playing, but DJ Uiagalelei, I can't say his name, but whatever. DJU played very well, so it wasn't his play. It was more the fact that they actually really struggled on defense because probably some of the injuries they had. And I think people have kind of said, "Oh, Clemson's going to come back and they're going to revenge that." I don't know. From what I've seen from North Carolina, I'm so sorry, Notre Dame. They played North Carolina, so that's what I was thinking of. I don't know. I don't know necessarily if Clemson's going to be in the second game. I really don't. And then that would be straight chaos because Clemson 2 losses probably is in trouble. Not being an ACC champion, so who would be the other team to get in? Be Oklahoma? I don't know. So that'd be fun. I might as well have chaos, right? Might as well just have chaos. This is chaotic year. COVID's chaotic. So, anyways, that's it I have for tonight. It was a quick podcast. I just kind of wanted to briefly go over stuff. I'm going to quickly go through the games that are right now scheduled in the Big Ten and Pac-12 for this week. My prediction, they're not going to all happen. Feel pretty strong about that. Anyways, this Saturday, December 5th, Ohio State versus Michigan. Don't think it happens. I'd pick Ohio State to win, but I don't think it happens. Nebraska at Purdue. Did Purdue win? Hold on. I need that. Purdue. See last game. No, Purdue didn't beat Rutgers. Purdue's not playing very well. They're lost their last, 3-4 games. But Nebraska's 1-4. I'll take Purdue. Penn State, Rutgers. Rutgers is not that bad. 2 victories for the team that's not very talented. Greg Schiano's done a good job. I take Penn State because Penn State won last week. But don't be shocked if Rutgers wins. Indiana, Wisconsin. I would have maybe said Indiana, but losing their quarterback, Michael Penix, I think they're going to struggle. I think Wisconsin wins that. And not that at Wisconsin matters that much. I think Wisconsin's going to win that. Wisconsin, I think, didn't look good against Northwestern. I think they'll come back and win. Maryland at Michigan. Michigan's terrible right now. I don't know. They're just not a very good team. Let's go Maryland. Iowa at Illinois. Iowa's playing pretty good ball. I would probably take Iowa there. Northwestern versus Minnesota is canceled due to the COVID cases for Minnesota. Pac-12, I'm going to look at that quickly. Actually, probably kind of know off the top of my head what. I'm going to see if I can Pac-12. See if I can Pac-12 schedule. And then I'm just going to be heading out. So Pac-12 schedule. I'm going to do December 5th. Sorry, didn't have this up. Stanford versus Washington. Assuming this happens, pretty bad restrictions in California. They're not allowing people to practice in Santa Clara County. I think they might be going up to Washington to practice for the week. I'm going to take Washington. Stanford's just it's been a tough season for them. I just think Washington's a little better. I think they're going to have trouble scoring on Washington. Colorado versus Arizona. Once again, Colorado's been very impressive. I think they go 4-0. I think they beat Arizona. I don't think Arizona has their starting quarterback, Grant Goodell. I think he's out for a while. Oregon versus Cal. I do really think this is not a very good matchup. It never has been for Cal. Even the last several years, no matter what Oregon has been dealing with, they've always been able to beat Cal. I just don't think they match up very well. And I don't think they match up very well again. I think that Oregon will be able to run because they struggle with the defense. And even though Cal has a pretty good pass defense, I think they're going to be able to run well enough that eventually stuff opens up and they'll be able to pass the ball. And I just think Cal is just not very good offensively. The best thing you can do is run on the Oregon defense, and I don't think their run game is very good. And then the pass game is not that great either. And so especially like if they have a good receiver, it's on the outside, and that's where Oregon's strong is their cornerbacks. And I just don't think they're going to be able to do much underneath. I think this is actually a good game for Oregon to get back on track. Oregon State versus Utah. Utah should really could have won that game 21-0 ahead of Washington. They ended up losing. I like Oregon State. I really like what they've done this year. I think they're a much better team. It's been impressive what Jonathan Smith has done with that program. I think I'm going to pick Oregon State in that game. UCLA versus Arizona State. The issue is Arizona State's been lost the opening week game, a game they probably should have won. They were ahead by 13 points with 4 minutes left. They lost it to USC. I thought Arizona State's like, man, they have to be chomping at the bit to get back out there and get that bad taste in their mouth. They get COVID. They end up having their next 3 games canceled. Really unfortunate. They basically only have a couple games left. I just have to think that COVID, the rhythm of the team, the overall just feeling of losing so many games, I think it's going to be tough for Arizona State to really be any good this year. They might beat Arizona the last game of the regular season, but I think they lose to UCLA. I think UCLA is playing pretty good ball. USC versus Washington State. Washington State's another team that's been out the last 2 weeks with the COVID cases. I also think that they overall just are not very good defensively. So I think USC probably can take advantage of that. USC's pass defense is actually pretty good. They struggle to stop the run, but Washington State, it's more effective with their pass game. I just think that this game kind of lines up pretty well for USC. So I'm going to pick USC in this game. Hopefully most of these games happen. So far, 9 games canceled in 4 weeks in the Pac-12. 6 in 6 weeks, but then you already have 1, and it's probably going to be 2 at least for the Big Ten. Cancellations galore. Unfortunately, that's what's happening right now. So anyhow, folks, I will be back next week, and hopefully it's a terrific week of college football. Okay, once again, visit us on iTunes, give us a like, share, and give us a review. This is the Tyler Turner Show. Peace out, people.